What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Fast Break Tundra Baller. This is another episode in the NBA Finals. So today we're going to be talking about games 2, 3, and 4 of the NBA Finals. So let's get started. So starting with game 2. So the Spurs, they had a big lead in the first half. They had double digits, but they had a really good lead in the first 3 minutes of the game. They were up 13-7. Julian Champagnie, he already made 2 threes out of 2 shots. And Jalen Brunson, though, he scored 8 points in the first 5 minutes. And eventually, in the first quarter, the Spurs were intentionally fouling Mitchell Robinson for 3 plays in a row. He has a really bad history of free throws. He is not a good free throw shooter. So this is pretty much the term hack-a-shack. If you don't know what that means intentionally fouling a bad free throw shooter so they can miss, because most likely they would miss statistically. So they fouled Mitchell Robinson 3 plays in a row. Luke Cornett fouled him the first time, and that was his second foul in the first quarter. So Carter Bryant, he came into the game and he fouled him twice. So he was probably just told, like, go ahead, foul Mitchell Robinson. So Mitchell Robinson, want to know how bad of a free throw shooter he is? He has a career low 40% from the line, a career 50% from the line. And from this quarter here, from the stretch here, he was 2 for 6 from the line. And he has, at the time of this game, he was 29% from the free throw line in the whole playoffs. And then the Spurs, they're up by 9 at the end of the first quarter. The Spurs, they shot 65%, 38% for the Knicks. The Spurs, they were shooting really good, 13 for 20. And the Knicks, 8 for 21. De'Aaron Fox, he had 9 points. Already more points already after the first quarter than game 1. He only had 7 in the first game. So in game 1. And then in the second quarter, the Spurs, they started with a double-digit lead from Stephon Castle's corner 3. And then after that, the Knicks, they came back. They were on a 9-2 run to bring the lead down to 5, and 9 straight points from Karl-Anthony Towns. And Stephon Castle, early on. So they already had 2 guys in foul trouble already in the first quarter. And they already have Stephon Castle early in the second quarter with his 3rd foul. And then the Knicks, they brought the lead down to 2. They brought that momentum, and they hit 2 threes, and both of them were from Mikal Bridges. And there was also this play also in the second quarter where Josh Hart, he lost the ball from Devin Vassell, and it was out of bounds. But the refs decided to review it because it looked like Hart might have grabbed Vassell's ankle to prevent him from getting the ball. So that's pretty much like a tripping foul right there. And after a review, they reviewed that it was unsportsmanlike, and they gave a flagrant foul, penalty 1, on Josh Hart, which was his 3rd personal foul halfway through the second. So there were a lot of fouls during this game. Already players in foul trouble. And then a play later, Mitchell Robinson was pushing and shoving Victor Wembanyama, and then it led him to get a technical foul. So, very competitive. This finals is really competitive, and they are just really competing, and there's a lot of physicality here. And then Mikal Bridges, he made his 3rd 3 of the quarter to bring the lead down to 1. Then Landry Shamet took the lead the next play with a baseline drive for a layup. Mikal Bridges, he hit his 3rd 3 of the quarter to bring the lead down to 1. Then Landry Shamet, he had a baseline drive for a layup to take the lead. The next play, Devin Vassell made 3 and 1, and he got fouled by the hair right here. He has long hair, and he got hit on the back of his hair, and it was still an and 1 contact on the head right there. But the Knicks, they were up by 4 at halftime, 56-52. Then to start off the second half, the Knicks, they had a 10-point lead. Both teams were going back and forth and scoring at that time. And then Karl-Anthony Towns, he got his 4th foul after an offensive foul. And the Spurs, they brought the lead down to 4. So pretty much the non-Karl-Anthony Towns minutes, They're really taking advantage of that. He has been doing a really good job guarding Victor Wembanyama and on defense also. Like they are not making a lot of shots over Karl-Anthony Towns and over Wemby too. But both of them going at it is a really good matchup. And then Wembanyama, he hit a three to bring the lead down to 4, and that got him 10 points in the quarter. And they brought the lead down to 5 after a 7-0 run in the fourth quarter. Then Landry Shamet put back the lead to 8 after a 3. And the Knicks, they went on a 7-0 run to bring the lead to 14. And then the Spurs, they went on their own 14-0 run to tie the game. So the Knicks, they had a 7-point lead. They doubled it at 14. And the Spurs, 14-0 run to tie the game. So at the last minute of the game, this is where things really went down here. So Jalen Brunson, he tied the game at 104 with 39 seconds left. Wembanyama, he missed a midi, and then Brunson missed. And then Wembanyama, he got a rebound. He tried to pass the ball ahead to Stephon Castle, but at the last second, so he was looking backwards, right? And then last second, he looked away, and then Wembanyama, he passed it, and then it went off Castle's back. And then it got stolen by Brunson, and then he got fouled. He made one and missed one, so they're up by 1 with 7 seconds left with 105, 104. But Wembanyama, he had a good shot over Mitchell Robinson, but it was no good. In and out, the Knicks won to take a 2-0 lead in San Antonio on the road. So this was 2 really good games. Both of them have been close. I like them competing, and that's how it should be. All close games. So in game 3, the Spurs, they took advantage of the game right away. They were up 18-9, 7-0 at the start. Wembanyama had 9 of 18 points. So at the time when it was 18-9, Wembanyama had as much points as the Knicks at the time. The Spurs, they missed their first 2 shots, and then they made 9 shots from the field in a row. There was a play that the refs missed, that Wembanyama pushed Jalen Brunson pretty hard to the ground. He pretty much just threw him down, pushed him down, and there was no call. Brunson was pretty mad, but he kept his composure because he already had a foul before this early on in the first quarter, so he didn't want to get a second foul. Especially in the finals, you don't want to waste one of your fouls on a frustration foul. After Josh Hart made a layup, it looked like Luke Cornett accidentally ran into him when he tried to get the ball through the net, which started a fight kind of. Then both teams, they were going at it. But this gave a technical foul on Josh Hart because he pretty much started, he was like, oh, you're not going to get in my face, stuff like that. But the Spurs, they were up again by a good amount after the first quarter, like game 2. And just like in the first quarter of game 2, they shot 61%. So the last game, they shot 65%. So kind of similar, 65%. And the Knicks, they shot 42%. So still pretty decent. It was better than they did in the first quarter of game 2. They shot 8 for 19. And then in the second quarter, they were down by 11 going into the second quarter. And they had a 8-0 run to bring the lead down to 2 in less than a minute. With 4 minutes left, Jalen Brunson, he hit a 3 over Wembanyama. It's pretty impressive. Jalen Brunson, what is he, 6'3", 6'4", and he is shooting over a 7'4" giant from the perimeter. So that's pretty impressive to get shots like that. You gotta create a lot of space to get shots over a guy over a foot taller than you. And he made a 3 over Wembanyama to take a 3, and he took the lead for the first time in the game. But Wembanyama, he responded with his own 3 after that to take the lead back again. And then with less than 3 minutes left, Stephon Castle fouled Jalen Brunson pretty hard while chasing a rebound. They reviewed it, and it turned out it was a common foul. Then he took the lead again. Brunson, he hit a three the next play to make the lead down to 5. And then they took a 7-point lead at halftime, 64-57. But at the start of the second half, the Spurs, they took control of the game again. Like with 5 minutes left, the Spurs went on a 7-0 run, and there was a lot of shots that they made. Dan Vassell, he made a three with 7.5 minutes left before that. So throughout the third quarter, the Spurs, they took control of the game again, and they went on a 7-0 run with 5 minutes left. And they were having a lead up to 7 at the beginning of the fourth. And it took the Knicks about 3.5 minutes to get their first points in the fourth. Wemby, he hit a deep three with a foul by Mitchell Robinson. Knicks coach Mike Brown, he challenged the play, and the foul was reversed. And it turned out that it was an offensive foul by Johnson because Johnson pushed Robinson into Wembanyama, which made Robinson foul Wembanyama. So the foul by Johnson, that was first. So that was an offensive foul. So halfway through the fourth, Brunson brings the lead down to 4 after an and 1. But then the Knicks dove the lead to 8 with 4:50 left. But then the Knicks, they took the lead down to 4. So with a minute left, the Knicks were down by 7. OG Anunoby, he drew a foul with 59 seconds left. He made one and missed one. So it was a 6-point game. And then Dylan Harper, he missed an open corner 3. Then Brunson got the rebound and then hits a snatchback 3 to cut the lead down to 3. So they weren't going away. Then Fox made a shot from the free throw line, 5-point game with 9 seconds left. And then OG Anunoby once again hits a 3, and it was over Dylan Harper, 2-point game with 9 seconds left. They fouled Castle with 6 seconds left, a second-year player, biggest shots possibly of his career, and he makes both. Bridges tried to make a 3, but it was no good, and then the ball went out of bounds, back to Knicks ball, and Anunoby misses another 3, and the game is over. So the Spurs, they won their first game of the series, so it is 2-1 now after 3 games. So now with game 4, a minute into the game, the Spurs already decided to use a coach's challenge on a foul call. Karl-Anthony Towns got fouled by Wembanyama, but before that, it looked like Towns held Wembanyama's arm. After review, it was a reverse and an offensive foul on Towns because let's say this is Karl-Anthony Towns' arm and this is Wembanyama's. He was hooking him like that, holding on to him, and so this was really big. After a minute, Cat already had his second foul. So without Cat, they really took advantage again. A good start once again for the third game in a row by the Spurs. They started up 12-2, and it was a 10-0 run after it was 2-2. And then half of those points were from Vassell with 2 threes. And then they went on another run minutes later to bring the lead to 12. And since Karl-Anthony Towns was out, he had to sit because of foul trouble. They had to bring in another guy after Mitchell Robinson named Ariel Hukporti. And he has barely played so far, especially in this playoffs. So this is his first appearance in the NBA Finals so far. But in this year's playoffs, he's played for a total of 70 minutes across 8 games. So he hasn't played that much. And he only played about a minute and a half before Mitchell Robinson came back in for him. Then Towns returned to the game a minute later for Robinson. So he pretty much sat for most of the quarter until about the last few minutes. And the rest, once again, they missed a big call. They missed an obvious goaltend when Jose Alvarado went up for a floater. The refs probably missed it though. I guess I could see their understanding here right then, like at the moment of the game. But it looked like it might have been a pass to Mitchell Robinson since he was next to the basket. So they probably thought it was a lob instead of a shot. So I guess I could see what the refs were thinking there, but it looked like the ball was going straight to the rim. So it probably should have been a goaltend because the ball was going down already and the ball was hit. And it was blocked by guess who? Luke Cornett. And the next play, there was also a questionable no call where the ball was above the cylinder and on the rim when Wembanyama tried to put the ball back in. But they didn't call it, and the bucket was still good. In the last minute of the quarter, Robinson was called for an offensive foul for extending his arm on Wembanyama's neck, and they reviewed it. It was a flagrant one. So when Wembanyama scored a basket earlier on that, he scored over Robinson. He was like, "Yeah, I'm on your head," or like, "I'm in your head." Yeah, it's in your head. And then he did that again after Robinson threw him down. So at this time, he had 13 points at 5% shooting. This is going to be important because after this happened, it's going to go downhill from there. And we're going to be talking about this a little bit more. So they were up 19-22, the Spurs. This was the largest first quarter lead in the finals since 2016. So 10 years ago, and this was the Warriors and Cavaliers. So we all remember what happened that year, right? The Cavaliers, they were down 3-1 with LeBron, and then on like a prime Warriors team, you had Curry, Clay, Draymond, and yeah, that was before Kevin Durant joined. But it was a prime Warriors team when they went 73-9, the best record in the league. So technically one of the best teams in the league. And then after that year, KD he joined the Warriors after that. So that's pretty crazy. But a dynasty Warriors team. And that is pretty crazy. But first team ever in NBA history to come back 3-1 in the playoffs. But let's get back to this game. The Knicks had 5 turnovers in that quarter, and the Spurs, they had 0. And there was also another big foul. Jose Alvarado, when he grabbed Wembanyama's legs and then he stepped over him. And it was pretty physical. He was guarding Wemby and he was just trying to like box him out and and prevent him from getting the ball in the post. After review, it was a common foul. And in the Spurs, they brought the lead 24 and then 27 at halftime. This was the largest lead by a road team in NBA Finals history. This was the largest lead besides the bubble in 2020 because besides for Orlando Magic, nobody was really home. It was at a neutral site. And then in the third quarter, Wembanyama, he gets a flagrant foul after his arm pretty much gave Karl-Anthony Towns an uppercut. And this is really important because for a suspension in the playoffs for too many flagrant fouls, so after 4 flagrant foul points. So what do I mean by points? So flagrant 1 is 1 point and flagrant 2 is 2 points. So pretty much you can get 4 flagrant foul points, pretty much. So he already had a flagrant 2 in the playoffs in the Minnesota series. And then this one is a flagrant 1. So thankfully for him, it wasn't a flagrant 2 because if it was a flagrant 2, that would have been reached for 4 points, and that would get him suspended for a game. So he can't get any more flagrant fouls, or else that is a suspension. So after the flagrant, the Knicks went on a 13-0 run to bring the lead down to 16 because they were down by 29 at the lowest point for them. And they had a lot of momentum to end the third, and they were down by 15. So they almost cut it in half from 29 to 15 at the end of the quarter. Then the Spurs brought the lead back to 20 with 9:30 left. And then a minute later, the Knicks brought it down to 15 once again. And then Towns, he hit his amazing step back 3 over Keldon Johnson and bring the lead down to 12. Step back, boom, he hits it, fell down on the Spurs bench, just like a shot saying like, "Oh yeah, I hit that right there in your face, guys." And then the Knicks, they went on a 13-2 run to bring the lead down to single digits, and then extended that run to 20-4 to make it a 4-point deficit in 5 minutes. And then Brunson, he made a three over Wembanyama once again to make it a 1-point game. And then Josh Hart stole a pass for the next play, and he missed an open layup. It looked like he might have tried to dunk it, but he lost it the last second and went off the back rim. Wembanyama got fouled with less than 2 minutes left, and he missed both. Brunson gets a floater over Castle, and that gives them their first lead of the game. Next possession, Castle stepped out of bounds with a minute left, and then they got a big stop to Spurs. They forced a shot clock violation with 30 seconds left. Then Josh Hart fouled Castle on a putback attempt, and he makes both free throws. Again, biggest free throws of his career, most likely, since this is his second year player and first time in the playoffs. Just big shots. And Brunson missed a floater. The ball was loose, grabbed by Fox, turned on the Jets for a layup. They didn't need to shoot the ball. The shot clock was off. There was about 15 seconds left. And then he just decided to go for a layup. It was blocked by Anunoby. Then Alvarado got for rebound, and they called a timeout right before it was backcourt. Or no, before that, it was a foul. Before a backcourt violation. But both of his feet was across the half-court line. But the ball wasn't across the line. So they literally saved themselves from a backcourt, the foul by the Spurs. And then it was with 5.7 seconds left. Brunson missed a deep three, and it was tipped in by OG Anunoby to bring the lead with 1.2 seconds left. So this was really big. They took the lead again after going down 29 points. And then Castle got the ball. It was stripped by Josh Hart, clean ball, and that was the ball game. 29-point comeback. This was the second biggest comeback in NBA playoff history and the biggest in NBA Finals history. Do you know who had that biggest comeback in NBA history in the playoffs? My LA Clippers. 31-point comeback against the prime Warriors team in 2019. First round of the playoffs. The Clippers lost that playoff series in 6. But still, I'm proud of those Clippers. They came back 29 points. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell. It was that type of team. And Patrick Beverly and just a lot of great players against our prime Warriors team. They had the Big Five. They had Curry, Clay, Draymond, Kevin Durant, DeMarcus Cousins. But yeah, going off topic a little bit, but this was really a really big comeback. The biggest playoff comeback in NBA Finals history. So, as I said, it was pretty important to know the stats after Wemby got that foul from Mitchell Robinson. So, like I said, he was 5 for 7 with 13 points. But he was 4 for 18 with 11 points after that. So pretty much in a little more than 3 quarters. So going back to the De'Aaron Fox layup at the end of the game, a lot of people were not happy with De'Aaron Fox, especially Spurs fans. If you are a Spurs fan listening to this, I feel so sorry for you guys. You know, De'Aaron Fox, he didn't have to go up with that. But after the game, he was obviously asked about it. And he said that he thought he could outrun OG Anunoby. He did have an advantage over him. And you know how fast De'Aaron Fox is. But he couldn't outrun him on that. And it was pretty much a chase down block from Anunoby. But a lot of people were hating on him. And I even made a video on my TikTok. Make sure you guys follow that. Tundra_Baller_0. Make sure you guys listen to that. And I pretty much said that this might have cost the Spurs a championship. But it's not over yet until a team has 4 wins. But this might have cost them a championship. It is really hard to go back from a 3-1 lead. This is just they had this game. They had this game like in the bag for them. If they kept going with that momentum that they had to bring them to that lead of 29, it would have been 2-2 easy. But they just put their pedal off the gas. They just put their foot off the gas, and it was just they just let the Knicks have this one. Like when Wemby said in the press after the game, he said that in the second half it looked like that the Knicks wanted it more than us. We weren't that hungry in the second half. So I expect Wemby to go to go crazy in tomorrow's game at the time I'm recording this in game 5. And it's gonna be in San Antonio. So the Knicks, they're undefeated in this series in San Antonio 2-0. So there was only one game where the home team won, which was game 4, and this one, the Knicks won in game 4. But does De'Aaron Fox deserve all the blame in this? I would say yes, maybe because of the one play, but the outcome of the game isn't always determined by one play. You know, it wasn't just him that blew the 29-point lead. It was the rest of the team. So you could blame it on Mitch Johnson. You could blame it on Fox. You could blame it on any other player on the Spurs, or you could just blame the whole team. I would blame the whole team. Darren Fox, he's probably getting all the hate right now for blowing the 29-point lead, and especially selling the game. But fans would be happy if he made that layup, and they would need a three-pointer instead. But they only needed a two, so they were able to settle for an easier shot the next. But what are your guys' thoughts about this? So game 5 is tomorrow at 5:30 at the time of recording this. So we're gonna be talking about more of this. So probably next Friday, but maybe earlier than if the Knicks close out the series, if they do. So game 5 is going to be tomorrow on Saturday, June 13th, and then 3 days later on Tuesday, June 16th. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how it is. So yeah, see you guys in the next episode, and let's see who will win this series.